The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was quiet for the first time in months. Usually, the massive chamber buzzed with the sounds of hundreds of different alien species arguing, debating, and making deals. Today, everyone was staring at the small human woman standing at the center podium. Ambassador Ji-won Kim looked tired. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple style, and her black diplomatic uniform was perfectly pressed as always. But her eyes told a different story. They were the eyes of someone who had tried everything and failed. She held a small silver badge in her hand, the symbol of Earth's membership in the Galactic Council. Behind her stood Do-hyun Park, Earth's military representative. He was a big man with broad shoulders and scars on his hands from years of fighting. His face was stone cold, showing no emotion. But his eyes were watching every alien in the room, ready for trouble. "Fellow council members," Ji-won began, her voice echoing in the huge chamber, "I stand before you today to deliver humanity's final message to this body." A ripple of confused whispers went through the crowd. The Vorthak delegation, with their gray skin and 4 arms, started clicking their mandibles together, a sign of annoyance. The tall, crystal-like Zelhari representatives began glowing with different colors, which meant they were talking to each other through light signals. Ji-won continued. "For 47 years, humanity has served on this council. We have answered every call for help. We have sent our ships to protect your worlds. We have shared our technology and our knowledge. We have bled and died for species we barely knew, simply because it was the right thing to do." Chancellor Kethmore of the Vorthak stood up, his 4 arms spread wide in a gesture of dismissal. "Ambassador Kim, surely you are not here to list your species' supposed achievements again. We have heard this before." "Supposed achievements." Ji-won's voice stayed calm, but everyone could hear the steel underneath. "When the Draxi plague threatened to wipe out the Centauri colonies, who developed the cure? When the Kelron pirates took over the Outer Rim trade routes, who drove them back? When the artificial intelligence on Xerion Prime went rogue and tried to destroy 3 star systems, who shut it down?" The crystal being called Vextara pulsed with red light. "These problems would have been solved eventually. Your species simply acted first due to your aggressive nature." Do-hyun's jaw tightened, but he stayed silent. Ji-won nodded slowly, as if she had expected this response. "I see," she said. "And when the Kethmori bioships attacked the hegemony, border worlds last year, I suppose you would have handled that too." President Zalthun of the hegemony, a creature that looked like a floating jellyfish with tentacles, spoke in his electronic voice. "The situation was contained. After we destroyed their entire invasion fleet," Ji-won replied. "After Captain Minho Lee led 30 human ships against 300 bioships and won. But I suppose that was just our aggressive nature, too." The chamber fell silent again. Every species in the room knew the truth, even if they would not say it. Humans had saved all of them multiple times, but admitting that would mean admitting they needed the young, violent species from a small blue planet on the edge of the galaxy. Ji-won walked slowly around the podium, looking at each delegation in turn. "For nearly 50 years, we have been told we are too violent, too emotional, too unpredictable. We have been given the smallest voice in council decisions, despite providing the largest military force. Our trade proposals have been rejected, our diplomatic solutions ignored, our warnings dismissed." She stopped in front of the Zelhari delegation. "You called us primitive warmongers just last month, Vextara. You said our presence in the council was a mistake that should be corrected." The crystal being's light dimmed. "I was speaking hypothetically about species development patterns." "No," Ji-won cut her off. "You were speaking your truth. All of you were, and we have finally listened." She walked back to the podium and held up the silver badge. "This is Earth's membership badge. It represents 47 years of service, sacrifice, and loyalty to this council. Today, I return it to you." The badge made a small sound as it hit the metal podium. In the silence that followed, that tiny sound seemed as loud as thunder. "Humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately," Jiwan announced. "All human military units will return to Earth space. All trade agreements are canceled. All diplomatic relations are ended. All defensive pacts are void." Chancellor Kethmore laughed, a harsh sound like metal scraping stone. "You cannot be serious. You need us more than we need you, human. Where will you go? What will you do without access to our technology, our trade networks, our protection?" Jiwan smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. It was not a nice smile. "We will find out, won't we?" Do-yun stepped forward and spoke for the first time. His voice was deep and rough. "All human personnel have 72 hours to reach extraction points. After that, we're gone." "This is ridiculous," President Zalthun declared. "You are being emotional and irrational. In a few months, you will come back and beg us to readmit you." "No," Jiwan said simply. "We won't." She turned and walked toward the exit, with Do-yun beside her. The aliens watched them go, some laughing, some looking worried, most just confused. As they reached the door, Jiwan turned back one last time. "You always wondered what made humans different from other species. You thought it was our violence, our emotions, our unpredictability. You were wrong. What makes us different is that we help people because we choose to, not because we have to. And when people don't want our help," she shrugged, "we stop offering it." The door closed behind them with a soft sound. In the great chamber, the aliens sat in silence for a long moment. Then the argument started. Some species wanted to send ships to stop the humans from leaving. Others said good riddance. A few wondered if maybe they should have treated Earth better, but it was too late for wondering. Within 72 hours, every human ship, station, and outpost in Council space was empty. They had not left forwarding addresses. They had not said where they were going. They had simply vanished, like they had never been there at all. The galaxy was about to learn what life was like without humans, and the lesson would be more painful than anyone could imagine. 6 months had passed since the humans left. The Galactic Council had moved on, or at least they pretended to. The great chamber was as loud as ever, filled with the usual arguments and debates. But things were starting to go wrong. Counselor. Hiram Choi had been right about many things during her time as Earth's representative. She had warned about pirate activities in the Outer Rim. She had predicted trade route problems. She had even filed reports about potential border conflicts. All of her warnings had been ignored or dismissed as human paranoia. Now those warnings were coming true. The first sign of trouble came from the merchant ships. Captain Tyke was a Vorthak trader who had been hauling cargo between systems for 20 years. He had never worried about pirates before because human patrol ships kept the trade routes safe. But 3 weeks ago, his ship had been attacked near the Kelros system. "They came out of nowhere," Tyke reported to the Council Trade Committee. 5 ships, all armed with military-grade weapons. They took everything and left us floating in space. If a hegemony rescue ship hadn't found us, we would have died. The committee members looked uncomfortable. Vextara, the Zelhari representative, pulsed with pale blue light. "This is an isolated incident. Pirates have always existed. We simply need to increase security patrols." "With what ships?" Tyke asked. "The human patrol fleets are gone." "Who is going to replace them?" No one had an answer. The second problem was bigger. The Draconian Empire had been quiet for years, kept in check by human peacekeeping forces along their border. The Draconians were large, aggressive reptiles who believed in conquest through strength. They had signed peace treaties only because human military bases made war too expensive. Now those bases were empty, Emperor Scales of Iron called a war council on the draconian homeworld. His generals gathered around the battle table, their yellow eyes gleaming with hunger. "The humans are gone," the Emperor announced. "The Council no longer has its attack dogs to protect them. It is time to reclaim what is rightfully ours." Within days, draconian fleets began moving toward the border worlds. Small colonies that had lived in peace for decades suddenly found warships in their skies. The local defense forces were no match for the draconian military. Dr. Sun Wu Yang sat in her new laboratory on New Seoul, humanity's capital world in their hidden sector. She monitored council communications through secret channels that the aliens still did not know about. The reports she read made her shake her head in disgust. "They still don't understand," she told her assistant. "Even with everything falling apart, they think it's just bad luck." The third crisis hit the medical systems. The Zeral plague had been extinct for 15 years, wiped out by human medical research. Dr. Yunha Park had led the team that developed the cure, working for 3 years without rest. The vaccine had been distributed to every world in Council space, but vaccines needed regular updates and maintenance. The humans had been providing new versions every year, keeping ahead of the disease's mutations. With the humans gone, no one was monitoring the plague strains or updating the vaccines. The disease returned with a vengeance on Altair Prime. Within weeks, millions were infected. The local hospitals had no idea how to treat it. They sent desperate messages to the council begging for help. The council medical committee met in emergency session. Dr. Vorthak, the head medical officer, spread his 4 arms in confusion. "The humans never shared their research data with us. They said it was too complex for other species to understand." "Arrogant as always," muttered President Zalthun. "Surely we can recreate their work." 3 months later, they were still trying. The plague spread to 7 more worlds. The economic problems were the worst of all. Humans had not just been warriors and doctors, they had been the galaxy's best logistics experts. Captain Minji-O had revolutionized interstellar shipping with her new cargo routing systems. Human engineers had designed the quantum communication networks that kept trade flowing. Human economists had created the credit systems that allowed different species to trade fairly. All of that knowledge had left with the humans. The Andorian Trade Consortium was the first major organization to collapse. For 200 years, they had connected buyers and sellers across 50 star systems. But their entire computer network had been designed and maintained by human technicians. When the system started failing, no one knew how to fix them. Ships arrived at ports with cargo that no one had ordered. Raw materials sat in warehouses while factories on other worlds shut down for lack of supplies. Currency exchange rates went crazy as the human-designed banking systems crashed. Admiral Jae-hyun Kwan watched it all from his command ship in Sector Zeta. His fleet of 300 vessels could have solved most of these problems in a few weeks. They had the patrol ships to stop the pirates, the firepower to push back the Draconians, and the medical supplies to fight the plague. But President Nayeon Song had been very clear in her orders. "We do not intervene," she had told the human assembly. "They chose to reject our help. Now they live with that choice." The council, meanwhile, grew more stubborn every day. Instead of admitting their mistakes, they blamed everyone except themselves. Chancellor Kethmore gave speeches about how the galaxy was going through temporary difficulties that had nothing to do with human departure. "We managed perfectly well before the humans arrived," he declared to a gathering of trade representatives. "These current problems are just coincidences. Pirates are a normal part of galactic life. Border conflicts happen between all species. Diseases come and go naturally." The audience listened politely, but privately, many of them were starting to doubt. The coincidences were piling up too quickly. President Zalthun went further. In a broadcast to all council worlds, he announced new policies. "Any species found communicating with human forces will be expelled from the council. Any ship providing aid to humans will be considered hostile. We do not need them, and we will not tolerate attempts to bring them back. The Council also placed bounties on human ships. Any captain who could capture a human vessel and bring it to Council space would receive 1,000,000 credits. It was a desperate move, disguised as strength. Dr. Sunwoo Yang laughed when she heard about the bounties. They still think we left because we were angry, she told her research team. They don't understand that we left because we were done. Back on Earth, now serving as humanity's military coordination center, General Yuna Shin studied reports from across the galaxy. Pirate attacks were up 400%. 3 minor wars had started along former human patrol routes. The plague was spreading faster than anyone had expected. Economic collapse was accelerating. It's exactly what Hiram predicted, she told her staff. Every single problem she warned them about is happening, right on schedule. Her aide, a young officer named Wanho Han, looked uncomfortable. General, shouldn't we help? People are dying. General Shin's face was hard. People were dying before too, Lieutenant. The difference is that now the Council has to deal with it themselves. They spent 50 years telling us we weren't needed. Let's see if they were right. The galaxy was learning a harsh lesson about the difference between being wanted and being needed. The humans had never been wanted by the Council leadership. But as each day passed, it became more obvious that they had been desperately needed, and they were never coming back. 1 year after humanity left, the galaxy was breaking apart piece by piece. What had started as small problems was now a disaster that no one could control. The Galactic Council still met every week, but their meetings had changed from confident planning sessions to desperate damage control. Captain Minjio had been right about everything. From her new office on New Seoul, she watched the galactic trade networks collapse exactly as she had predicted they would. The shipping routes she had designed were failing without human maintenance. The quantum communication systems were breaking down. The financial networks were crashing one by one. The Andorian Trade Consortium was completely gone now. 200 years of business connections had vanished in 6 months. The consortium's main hub station was now empty, floating in space like a metal graveyard. Thousands of traders who had depended on the consortium for work were now unemployed and angry. But the trade collapse was just the beginning. The real nightmare was coming from the galactic rim. The Keth Mori had been sleeping for 300 years. They were an ancient species, older than any race in the Council. Their ships were not built. They were grown, like massive living creatures, with teeth and claws made of metal. The Keth Mori did not trade or negotiate. They consumed everything in their path and moved on to find more. For generations, they had stayed in the deep darkness between galaxies. But something had awakened. Them. Maybe it was the chaos in Council space. Maybe it was the lack of human patrol ships along the rim worlds. Maybe they just sensed weakness like sharks smelling blood in water. The first reports came from the outer rim colonies. Ships went missing near the galactic edge. Then entire mining stations stopped responding to communications. Finally, a badly damaged freighter limped into Kepler Station with news that made everyone's blood run cold. "They're back," Captain Sorrell whispered to the station commander. His ship was covered in strange burns that looked like acid damage. "The Keth Mori are back, and they're hungry." The station commander, a Vorthak named Four Arms Ket, stared at the damaged ship. "That's impossible. The Keth Mori have been gone for centuries. They're probably extinct." "Tell that to the Harvester colony," Sorrell replied. "There's nothing left of it but space dust and biomatter." The news reached the Council 3 days later. President Zalthun read the report in the emergency session, his tentacles quivering with barely controlled fear. The other Council members were just as shocked. "Surely this is an exaggeration," Chancellor Kethmore said, but his voice was not as confident as usual. "Some new pirate group using old horror stories to frighten people." Vextara's crystal body flashed with rapid colors. As she processed data, negative. Deep space sensors confirm massive biosignatures moving toward inhabited systems. Energy patterns match historical records of Kethmori vessels. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew the stories. The Kethmori had once swept through this part of the galaxy like a plague, consuming entire civilizations. They had only been stopped by an alliance of every species working together, using weapons that had been banned ever since. But that alliance had been led by humans. Admiral Jaehyun Kwon received the intelligence reports on his flagship, the New Harmony. His fleet was hidden in Sector Zeta, far from Council space, but his spy network still fed him information. He read about the Kethmori return with grim satisfaction. "They don't remember, do they?" he asked his aide, Commander Seojin. Kim. "They don't remember that it was human early warning systems that first detected the Kethmori movement patterns. Human scientists who figured out how to track their bioships. Human tacticians who developed the strategies that drove them back." "Commander." Kim shook his head. "The history books give most of the credit to the Zelhari and Hegemony forces. Humans are mentioned as junior partners in the alliance." "Of course we are," Admiral Kwon said with a bitter laugh. "Just like we were junior partners when we saved their worlds from pirates, plagues, and civil wars." Meanwhile, the Kethmori were getting closer. Their bioships moved slowly but steadily, consuming asteroids and space debris to fuel their growth. Each ship that fed became larger and more dangerous. Intelligence reports showed that the swarm now included hundreds of vessels, some as large as space stations. Dr. Sunwoo Yang monitored the situation from her research center. The data was terrifying but not surprising. "The Kethmori always return when they sense weakness," she explained to President Nayeon Song during their secure communication. "They can smell fear and chaos across space. The galaxy is giving off both right now." President Song looked tired. Leading humanity's exodus and building their new civilization had taken everything she had. But she was still the leader who had made the hard choice to leave, and she would stick to it. "Are you recommending we help?" she asked. Dr. Yang was quiet for a long moment. "No. I'm recommending we prepare. The Kethmori won't stop with Council space. Eventually they'll find us too. But by then, maybe we'll be ready for them in ways the Council never was." The first real battle happened at the Zerian system. 3. Kethmori bioships encountered a Council defense fleet of 12 vessels. The Council ships were modern, well-armed, and crewed by experienced officers. They should have won easily. They lasted 18 minutes. The bioships moved like living things, twisting and bending in ways that metal ships couldn't match. Their weapons were not lasers or missiles, but streams of acid that ate through armor like it was paper. When a Council ship was destroyed, the bioships swarmed over the wreckage, consuming the metal and growing larger. Only one Council ship escaped to report what had happened. Its captain, a hegemony officer named Tentacle Bearer Voth, was shaking when he reached the nearest station. "They're not ships," he reported to Council Command. "They're monsters. They eat our vessels and use the metal to make themselves stronger. Our weapons barely scratched them." The news spread through Council space like wildfire. Panic began to set in on the rim worlds. Colonies that had existed for centuries started packing up and fleeing toward the galactic core. The refugee crisis made the trade problems look small by comparison, but the worst was yet to come. The Zelhari crystal mines, the most advanced computers in the galaxy, began running calculations on the Kethmori advance. Their projections were so terrible that they kept them secret at first. According to the crystal mines, the Kethmori would consume 40% of Council space within 2 years. Maybe more if they encountered no significant resistance. The bioships were growing stronger with each battle, and the Council forces were too scattered and demoralized to stop them. For the first time in their crystalline existence, the Zelhari began to doubt their own superiority. The calculations didn't lie. Without the human military networks, Without human tactical expertise, without human early warning systems, the Council was helpless against an enemy they had faced before only with human help. Vextara stared at the data streams flowing through her crystal body. Somewhere in the calculations was a terrible truth she had been avoiding. The humans hadn't just been participants in galactic civilization. They had been its immune system, fighting off diseases and threats that others couldn't even see coming. And now the galaxy was sick, and getting sicker every day. Back in human space, the reports continued to flow in. The Draconian Empire had conquered 6 more systems. The Zeral Plague was now on 14 worlds. The economic collapse had spread to the core systems. And now the Kethmori were adding their own special horror to the mix. General Yuna Shin read each report carefully, filing them away in her growing collection of evidence. When the time came, and she knew it would come, humanity would need proof of what the galaxy looked like without them. "How long do you think they'll last?" asked her intelligence chief, Colonel Dongyan Lim. General Shin studied the tactical displays showing Kethmori movements, draconian advances, and plague spread patterns. At this rate, maybe 18 months before total collapse. Maybe less, if the Kethmori learn to reproduce faster. And then? Then, General Shin said quietly, they'll come looking for us, and we'll be ready to discuss terms. 18 months after humanity disappeared, the Galactic Council was dying. Half their territory was gone. The Kethmori bioships had consumed 12 major systems. The Draconian Empire controlled 28 worlds that used to belong to Council members. The plague was killing millions on 15 different planets. Trade had collapsed completely, but instead of admitting their mistakes, the Council leaders made the worst decision in galactic history. President Zalthun floated at the head of the emergency session table. His tentacles were pale with stress, but his electronic voice was still full of anger. "We cannot continue like this. Every day we grow weaker while our enemies grow stronger. There is only one solution." Chancellor Kethmor nodded with all 4 of his arms. "The humans caused this crisis by abandoning their duties. They must be forced to return and fix what they broke." Vexitara's crystal body pulsed with nervous energy. The tactical analysis supports this approach. Human military expertise is required to counter the current threats. Their departure created a strategic vacuum that only they can fill. The plan was called Operation Recall. It was simple and arrogant and completely insane. The Council would send their largest military fleet to track down the humans and drag them back to Council space by force. They would capture human colonies, take human prisoners, and demand that Earth surrender and return to their rightful place as the Council's military servants. Admiral Vorthak was chosen to lead the mission. He was a Vorthak military hero with 200 years of experience. His fleet included 2,000 of the Council's best warships, dreadnoughts, battlecruisers, and carrier ships loaded with fighter squadrons. It was the largest military force the Council had ever assembled. "The humans are probably scattered and weak," Admiral Vorthak told his officers during the mission briefing. "They have been isolated for almost 2 years. They cannot have maintained their military strength without access to our resources and technology. We will find them, capture their leadership, and bring them home to face justice." The fleet followed the humans' original escape route, using deep space sensors to track their path. It took 3 months of searching, but they finally found what they were looking for: a quantum signature leading to an unexplored sector of the galaxy. What they discovered there made Admiral Vorthak question everything he thought he knew about humans. The humans had not just survived their exile, they had thrived. Dozens of new colonies stretched across multiple star systems. Massive space stations orbited planets that had been transformed from lifeless rocks into garden worlds. The construction was incredible. Cities floating in space, industrial complexes that dwarfed anything in Council space, defensive platforms that bristled with weapons. How is this possible? Admiral Vorthok whispered as he stared at the sensor. Readings. They have only been gone 18 months. This would take decades to build. His intelligence officer, a Zelhari named Bright Mind Zell, flashed with confused colors. The humans appear to have been preparing for this exodus for many years. These colonies were already established when they left Council space. They have been planning their departure for a very long time. The Admiral felt a chill run through his gray skin. The humans had not left in anger or desperation. They had left because they were ready to leave. Everything they had done in the Council, all their warnings, all their attempts to help, all their diplomatic efforts, had been them giving the galaxy one last chance. But it was too late to turn back now. The Council fleet advanced toward the human colonies, expecting to find scattered settlements defended by outdated patrol ships. What they found was Commander Dongyun Lim waiting for them with 200 human vessels. The human ships were like nothing the Council had ever seen. They were smaller than the massive Council dreadnoughts, but they moved with perfect coordination. Swarms of tiny robotic fighters surrounded each ship like clouds of metal insects. The human vessels themselves seemed to change shape as they moved, adapting to different tactical situations. Admiral Vorthok opened communications with the human commander. This is Admiral Vorthok of the Galactic Council Fleet. You are ordered to surrender immediately and return to Council space for judgment. Commander Lim appeared on the main screen. He was a young man with calm eyes and a slight smile that did not reach them. Behind him, the bridge of his ship was filled with displays, showing tactical information that made the Council officers nervous. Admiral, Commander Lim said politely, you are in human territory without permission. You have 30 seconds to turn around and leave. Admiral Vorthok's forearms spread wide in disbelief. You dare threaten us? We have 2,000 ships. You have barely 200. Surrender now and we will show mercy. Commander Lim's smile disappeared. 20 seconds. This is your final warning, human. Submit to Council authority or face the consequences. 10 seconds, Commander Lim said quietly. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Battle of the Void Gate lasted 6 hours and changed everything. The Council ships attacked first, launching thousands of missiles and fighter squadrons. Their weapons were powerful and their tactics were proven in dozens of previous wars. They should have crushed the human force in minutes. Instead, they ran into something that made no sense. The human ships did not fight like any military the Council had ever faced. They moved like a single organism, each vessel knowing exactly where the others would be. Their robotic fighters worked together in ways that seemed impossible, covering each other and adapting to threats faster than Council computers could track. The human weapons were different too. Instead of massive cannons or missile launchers, they used swarms of small, smart projectiles that could change course mid-flight. When a Council ship raised its shields, the human weapons would split apart and attack from different angles at the same time. But the most terrifying thing was how the human ships communicated. Council forces used radio and quantum signals that could be jammed or intercepted. The humans seemed to be connected directly to each other's minds, sharing information instantly across the entire fleet. Admiral Vorthok watched his massive dreadnought fleet get torn apart by ships half their size. How are they doing this? He demanded. Our intelligence said human technology was inferior to ours. Bright Mind Zell was flashing through colors so quickly that her crystal body looked like a rainbow. They are using quantum entanglement communication, artificial intelligence coordination, adaptive weapon systems, technologies we theorized about but never developed. Why didn't we develop them? The Admiral asked. Because we never needed to, Zell replied quietly. The humans always fought our wars for us. The battle turned into a massacre. One by one, the Council ships were destroyed or disabled. The human forces moved through them like sharks through a school of fish, striking with perfect precision and vanishing before the Council ships could respond effectively. When it was over, Only 3 council vessels remained intact. Admiral Vorthak's flagship was one of them, but only because Commander Lim had deliberately spared it. The human commander appeared on screen again. His calm expression had not changed, but now there was something cold behind his eyes. "Admiral," he said, "you will take a message back to your council. Humanity tried to leave peacefully. We offered no threat to anyone. We simply wanted to go our own way. You have now made that impossible." Admiral Vorthak stared at the tactical display showing the wreckage of his fleet. "What? What are you going to do?" "We are going to finish what you started," Commander Lim replied. "You came here with warships and demands. You attacked human territory. You have declared war on us, whether you realize it or not." General Yuna Shin's voice came over the communication channel. She was speaking from the human command center, and her face was harder than spaceborne ice. "Tell your council that they have made their final mistake," she said. "For 50 years, we protected you from threats you never even knew existed. We were your shield and sword, and you threw us away because you were too proud to admit you needed us." She leaned forward, and every word she spoke hit like a hammer blow. "Now you will learn what the galaxy looks like when humans are your enemies instead of your protectors. Tell your leaders that we are coming, not to conquer but to collect what you owe us. You wanted our help? You will have it. On our terms. Under our rules. Forever." The transmission ended. Admiral Vorthak stared at the dark screen for a long moment, then gave the order to retreat. His 3 surviving ships limped back toward Council space, carrying the worst news in galactic history. The humans were no longer leaving. They were coming back, and they were not coming back as friends. 2 years after humanity left the Galactic Council, the galaxy was dying. The Kethmori had consumed 23 star systems, turning entire worlds into feeding grounds for their bioships. The Draconian Empire controlled 42 former council worlds, enslaving billions of civilians. The Zeral Plague had spread to 28 planets, killing millions every day. 3 major species had lost their home governments completely. The council still met, but now it was in a bunker deep underground, on the hegemony capital world. The great chamber where humanity had said goodbye was now a pile of rubble, destroyed by draconian bombardment 6 months earlier. President Zalthun floated in the cramped emergency room, his tentacles gray with exhaustion. Only 12 species were left in the council, down from the original 47. The others were dead, conquered, or had simply given up and gone into hiding. "We have to face the truth," Chancellor Kethmore said quietly. His 4 arms hung limp at his sides, and his voice had lost all its old arrogance. "We are losing. No, we have already lost. It is only a matter of time before we are all extinct." Vextara's crystal body pulsed with dim, defeated colors. "The Zelhari crystal mines calculate a 97.3% probability of complete civilization collapse within 8 months. The variables are too numerous to overcome." That was when the message arrived. Elder statesman Wanho Han appeared on every communication, screen in council space at the same time. He was an older human with gray hair and kind eyes, but there was steel in his voice. He had been Earth's most respected diplomat before the Exodus, the one who had tried hardest to make peace between humans and the other species. "People of the galaxy," he began, "I speak to you not as a representative of the Galactic Council, but as a voice for all those who still believe in hope." The transmission was being broadcast from a human ship, but it was reaching every inhabited world in known space. Somehow, the humans had gained control of the galaxy's entire communication network. 2 years ago, humanity left the Council because we were told we were not wanted. We were called violent, primitive, and dangerous. We were treated as second-class citizens despite saving your worlds countless times. So we left, hoping you would prove that you could manage without us. Wanho's expression was sad but not angry. We were wrong to hope, not because you are weak or stupid, but because the galaxy is a dangerous place. It takes strength to survive here, and it takes cooperation to thrive. We forgot that lesson once, many years ago, and it nearly destroyed us. Now you are learning. It the hard way? The old diplomat leaned forward, and his voice became stronger. But it is not too late. Humanity offers a choice to every species, every world, every person listening to this message. We will help you survive the current crisis. We will drive back the Kethmori, defeat the Draconians, and cure the plague. We will rebuild your trade networks and restore peace to your worlds. President Zalthun's tentacles began to quiver with something that might have been hope. But at what cost? He whispered. As if he had heard the question, Wanho continued. The price is simple. Any species that wants human help must do three things. First, formally apologize for your treatment of humanity during our time in the Council. Second, leave the Council permanently and accept that it no longer speaks for you. Third, agree to follow human leadership in all matters of galactic security and defense. The chamber fell silent. It was surrender, complete and total, but it was also survival. Those who accept these terms will be protected and aided, Wanho said. Those who do not will be left to face the current crisis alone. You have 72 hours to decide. The transmission ended, leaving the council leaders staring at blank screens. The first species to respond was the Altarians. Their home world was dying from the plague and their government was desperate. Within 6 hours of Wanho's broadcast, they sent a formal apology to humanity and requested immediate aid. The response was swift. Human medical ships arrived at Altair Prime within days, carrying not just plague vaccines, but completely new treatments that stopped the disease in its tracks. Dr. Yunha Park, now leading humanity's medical corps, personally oversaw the relief effort. How did you develop these treatments so quickly? Asked Dr. Petalface, the Altarian chief physician. Dr. Park smiled sadly. We never stopped working on them. Even after we left, we knew the plague would return eventually. We have been preparing for this day for 2 years. The Centauri Federation was next, followed by the Vegan Commonwealth. Each species that joined the humans brought intelligence about the crisis and resources to help fight it. More importantly, they brought proof of something the original council members had never wanted to admit. Humanity had been right about everything. Captain Seojun Kim led the first major military operation against the Kethmori bioships. His fleet included human vessels and ships from the new human allies, all working together with perfect coordination. The battle at the Kepler Nebula lasted 3 days and ended with the complete destruction of the largest Kethmori swarm. How are we winning? Asked Captain Spiral Shell of the Centauri forces. These creatures destroyed everything the Council sent against them. Captain Kim pointed to his tactical display. The Council tried to fight the Kethmori like they were normal enemies, but they are not normal. They are a biological weapon designed to consume civilizations. You cannot defeat them with bigger guns or stronger shields. Then how do we defeat them? You turn their greatest strength into their weakness, Kim replied. They consume metal and organic matter to grow stronger. But what happens when the material they consume is poisoned? The human ships had been releasing specially designed nanobots into space, tiny machines that looked like normal space debris. When the Kethmori bioships tried to consume them, the nanobots activated and began destroying the creatures from inside. It was biological warfare on a scale never seen before. Engineer Haeun Lee was rebuilding trade networks just as quickly. The new systems were faster, safer, and more efficient than anything the Council had ever created. But they were also completely controlled by human computers. The galaxy will never be independent again, she explained to President Neon Song during a security briefing. Every ship, every trade route, every communication channel will run through our systems. If anyone tries to betray us or hurt our allies, we can shut down their entire civilization with the press of a button. The original council species, the Vorthak, Zelhari, and Hegemony, held out until the very end. They were too proud to apologize, too arrogant to admit they had been wrong. They watched as their former subjects and allies abandoned them one by one, joining the growing human commonwealth. But pride could not stop the Keth Mori. Pride could not cure the plague. Pride could not rebuild collapsed economies or defend against draconian attacks. Ambassador Taiyang Seo delivered humanity's final ultimatum from the bridge of the battleship New Earth. He was broadcasting directly to the Council's emergency bunker, and his message was simple. "You have one last chance," he said. "Surrender completely. Accept human governance. Admit that you were wrong about everything. Do this, and you will live as protected territories under human Commonwealth rule. Refuse, and you will face the same extinction that awaits the Keth Mori." President Zalthun stared at the screen with dying eyes. His species had ruled their part of the galaxy for 1,000 years. Now they were being offered the choice between slavery and death. "What guarantee do we have that you will not simply exterminate us anyway?" he asked. Taeyang's expression was cold but not cruel. "None. You will have to trust us. Just like we trusted you for 50 years, and just like every species in the galaxy trusted you to protect them. How did that work out? The Hegemony surrendered first, followed by the Vorthak. The Zelhari held out for another week, their crystal minds calculating odds and possibilities until the very end. But mathematics could not change reality. They surrendered on a Tuesday in a message that was only 3 words long. "We were wrong." The human commonwealth was officially established 6 months later. 43 species belonged to it, with more joining every month as the new government proved its effectiveness. Humanity controlled all military forces, all communication networks, and all major trade routes. Other species could govern their own worlds, but only under human oversight. The galaxy was at peace for the first time in centuries. The Keth Mori were extinct, destroyed by human biological weapons. The Draconian Empire had been crushed by human military forces and was now a series of rehabilitation colonies. The plague was gone forever, eliminated by human medical science. President Nyon Song stood in the new Human Commonwealth Assembly Hall, looking out at representatives from dozens of worlds. They were all here because humanity had saved them. They stayed because humanity protected them. They obeyed because they had learned what happened when they did not. "We never wanted to rule the galaxy," she said during her inaugural address. "We wanted to help it. We wanted to be partners and friends. We were willing to serve and sacrifice and die for people who saw us as nothing more than useful tools." Her voice carried across the chamber and to every world in human space. "You taught us that kindness is seen as weakness, that helping others makes you a target for exploitation, that the only way to be respected is to be feared.